Muted.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Socorro, Texas. It is March 5th, 2024, 5:31 p.m. We call this meeting to order.
Good afternoon. Item number 2, establishment of quorum. Andrew Arroyos,
Here.
Enrique Cisneros,
Here.
David Estrada,
Here.
Julie Dominguez, absent. Osvaldo Reza,
Here.
Yolanda Rodriguez, absent. We have a quorum with 4 commissioners present. Item number 3, notice to the public, open forum. Victor, do we have anyone that would like to speak?
At this time, anyone who's on the line may speak for public comment. Secretary, hearing no one, we are ending the phone call for public comment.
Thank you. Item number 4, consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to approve and second by Osvaldo Reza. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Regular agenda discussion and action. Item number 5, public hearing request for the proposed amendment to the Cities of Socorro Master Plan and rezoning of Lot 5, Block 22, Friedman Estates, Unit 2, located at 11470 Peters Road, Socorro, Texas, from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Medium Density Residential to allow for a duplex. Mr. Arroyos?
Good afternoon. It's 5:33 p.m. We open to public hearing.
We do not have speakers.
Okay, so we will close public hearing at 5:33.
Thank you. Item number 6, consider and take action on the approval of a proposed amendment to the City of Socorro's master plan and rezoning of Lot 5, Block 22, Friedman Estates, Unit 2, located at 11470 Peters Road, Socorro, Texas, from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Medium Density Residential to allow for a duplex. Ms. Lorraine?
Thank you, Marion. Commissioners, good evening. Lorraine Quimito, City Planner. Item 6 on the agenda is a rezoning of 11470 Peters Road. The property is Lot 5, Block 22 of Friedman Estates, Unit 2. The representative is and owner is Arlicia and Ismael Villalobos Jr. The property is 10,000 square feet. It is currently zoned R1, single-family residential, and vacant. Future land use map for the City of Socorro designates this area as single-family residential. In summary, again, the request is to rezone the property from R1 to R2 to allow for a duplex. Staff recommends approval of the request. The property is located on Peters, just south of the intersection of Passmore and Peters. Next slide depicts the zoning map. At the top middle area of the map, highlighted in red, is the applicant property. Friedman Estates Unit 2 extends to the back of the properties fronting Toyota. You can see in the zoning map the immediate zoning around the property is single-family residential to the north, south, and west, and to the east there is the canal and R3 zoning. There are 2 R2 zoning districts within the subdivision and 1 R3. This is the view of the property. Photos were taken from across the street from Peters. As you can see, it is vacant. The land use, again, single-family residential homes to the north, south, east, and west. This is the original Friedman Estates Unit 2 subdivision. It consisted of 294 lots, 14 which are currently vacant. There are 2 lot splits that were done by Meets and Bounds. From just a drive-by view of the neighborhood, there were 6 properties that appear to be duplexes, even though they don't have legal non-conforming status. If there's something connecting those detached dwellings, I'm not sure, that would be something that we would have to look into further. And and then the multifamily was 4 units. This is a map showing the properties that were notified of the zoning request. These are properties within 200 feet of the applicant property, and no notices were received either in favor or against the request. This is the site plan showing the entrance to Peters, a duplex. In summary, the request is for approval of a rezoning of the property from R1 to R2 to allow for a duplex. The applicant is available to answer any questions, as is staff.
I just want to make sure on one thing that I thought.
Mr. Estrada?
So quick question, there was 3 lots that are registered R2, right, correct? 3 lots within that subdivision? I think that's what I'm understanding.
There are 2 R2s and 1 R3.
And 1 R3, okay, 2 R2s, okay. And then you said there were 6 duplexes that were.
Like from the street, they look like either a duplex, they have an A and B, or they have 2 structures.
2 structures on it, or it looks like, they look like, but you said they're illegal, they're not illegal.
That was an additional level of research that I
Okay.
was not able to follow up on.
Okay. Okay, well, I really appreciate the additional information that was presented to us. It makes the decision a lot easier.
Just a couple of questions. Can we send those addresses to code compliance, or what's the follow-up on those? Okay.
We can.
And then the second thing is, seems like an easy decision for me. I think that if we could also add an extra level of protection, just say that the maximum, to have a maximum of 2 units.
Not a quad.
Yeah. So if nobody has any, ready to make a motion. Like to make a motion for
Just to leave it
approval.
at a duplex, you wouldn't be able to add one later. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion for approval with a maximum of 2 units on this property.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion made by Enrique Cisneros to approve with a maximum of 2 units, and second by Osvaldo Reza. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Item number 7, consider and take action on the approval of a final plan for Valle Nuevo Unit 1, being a portion of tracks 1B, 1B1, 1C, 1D, 1D3, 1H, 2A, 2C1, 4A, 2B, 4B1, 4B2, 4C, 6A, 6B, and 6C, Block 5, Socorro Grant, Socorro, Texas, in a variance to allow for lots smaller than 6,000 square feet. Ms. Lori?
Thank you. The request is for a final plat approval and variance request for Valle Nuevo Unit 1. The property owner is Valle Nuevo LLC. Jorge Escarate CA Group is a representative. The property is 56 acres in size, zoned R2 and C2. It is currently vacant, and the proposed land use is residential and commercial. Summary of the request is to approve the final plat for Valle Nuevo Unit 1 and a variance request to allow for lots smaller than 6,000 square feet. Staff recommends approval of the request along with the variances. Planning and Zoning Commission voted to approve the preliminary plat in October of 2021. Most recently, City Council voted to extend the preliminary plat as it had expired in January. The property is located just outside the city, just within the city limits to the north of North Loop before Nuevo Hueco Tanks. The property is highlighted in red, zoned R2 with the commercial fronting North Loop. The applicant will likely need to come back at a later date to rezone the commercial lots within the subdivision, as you might have noticed in the plat. Zoning to the north is agricultural, to the west, northeast, ICMUD, and to the south, a mix of residential and commercial zoning. These are property photos taken from across North Loop on top, and the bottom photograph is taken from across the street, Navares. There's an aerial photograph showing that the property is vacant. The area to the northeast is being developed, currently platted by a Nuevo Commercial, still largely vacant with currently under construction a car wash. The north is a mix of, even though it says agriculture, there is some industrial uses there, and the residential to the south. That was an image of the preliminary plat and the final plat for consideration. With that, staff can answer any questions, and Alan Herrera of CEA Group is on the call and can answer any questions.
I have questions. So I was not here back in 2021. What is the normal that they're asking for a variance for slots smaller than 6,000? What would be the allowed if it didn't go under 6,000 square feet?
I'm sorry?
So
Can you repeat the question?
what would be the normal allowed since they're asking for a variance for under 6,000 square feet?
This was requested back in 2001. The smallest lots, and I wrote it down on a separate piece of paper, I apologize. So I don't think that I can find it here, but we can place that minimum of the lowest one that's being presented.
Which we would know that, I believe. to
Yes,
make a decision.
it's in the plat. All of the lots are identified with address, lot numbers, and the size of each lot.
But we don't have this information here.
It's in the plat, but it's very difficult to read at this point.
So, I mean, in order to make a decision, right, unless we can put something like right now, make per se, if it was to go forward, to stipulate something, it cannot go under like per se 500 square feet, because we're just saying for a variance under 6,000, but what if they want to cut it down to 3,500 square feet lot?
Let me ask if the
I think we would need
representative can answer
clarification,
that
right?
question. Mr. Herrera, do you know what the smallest size lot is? And how many of them are under 6,000 square feet? Because not all of them are under 6,000 square feet.
Good afternoon. This is Alan Herrera. I'm the representative with CEA Group. Most of the lots are actually within the range of 5,500 square feet or more. I don't have a number of how many lots of those total are actually under 6,000, but none of them are going to go or under 5,000, if you want a number to say. I mean, most of them are 5,500 and above.
I have a follow-up. Do we have in the record what the commission, how the commission had voted back in 2001? Was it a split vote?
No, I do not have the record of the vote.
If-
I
It
know
was
we
approved
hashed
by-
this one out, right? We talked about it, we went round and round on it, and it was just so long ago, we don't remember. And I think it was, we voted to approve but there were conditions on how many lots could be under the threshold, right? And then we had a minimum square footage amount. And so my question, from that preliminary plat that was presented back in 2021, has it changed any to what we're being presented with today?
No.
So I kind
Oh,
of remember,
go-
Mr. David, also that we kind of went back and forth on this one, but I think that they had, majority of the lots were over, but the ones that, it was very little lots that were under the 6,000. But, yeah, it's been
It's
a
something
while.
that I think we all ended up agreeing to, but I don't remember for sure.
Did it change the preliminary, did the final change from the preliminary on the size of the lots?
I think maybe the representative can answer that question.
Can you repeat again that question?
From the preliminary plat that we were presented back in 2021, has that preliminary, has that changed to, compared to what we're being presented with today?
Well, there has been a few adjustments, and one of them is we're proposing a park. So there has been very minor adjustments, but the lot size, they have been kept around the same threshold.
Can you say that last sentence again?
The lot size, the minimum lot size that we're currently using for the subdivision, they are being held with that same threshold.
What size is the park that you're proposing?
The park that we're proposing is 0.71 acres.
One acre lot?
0.71.
0.71.
So almost 3/4 of an acre.
There's one that is 0.71, and there's another one that is 0.76.
And were these parks on the original plat or on the preliminary plat?
The 0.71 was not.
I'm trying to get back to the plat, and I did note another change on page 2, the configuration of Marisabel and Sonia Place is a change. So if you look at this top portion, where it's 2 cul-de-sacs on the far right, that is a change.
Right.
It is being replaced by just the one. How many lots are removed by doing that, and is that the location of the park?
Okay, at this cul-de-sac, obviously the lot number changed, but where we're proposing that park, that 0.071 park, I think from the original pre-plat that we had submitted, we are removing 4 residential lots. I'm sorry, 5 residential lots.
So you're saying you have 5 less lots today than what you did when you presented the preliminary because of the park?
Well, actually, what I'm saying is that we are substituting the park for 5 lots.
For 5 lots. So you're losing 5 lots, but you have the park in lieu of the 5 lots. Okay.
I have some questions. How many residential lots are in the development?
Right now, it's 217.
And we don't have and I know this question was asked before, but we do not have a count of the ones that are under 6,000, right?
I don't.
Okay. And then, Ms. Quimito, this came back because it took them more than 2 years to develop it? Or why did it come back?
No, they're presenting their final plat for approval, what they needed to do before being presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission
Uh-huh.
was get an extension from city council because the 2 years had passed. There's a great deal of coordination that was required for this plat. There were areas where the roads were going to have to go over the irrigation canal, so there was coordination with the irrigation district for that. So it took a little longer, and I don't know if there was any other items that that the representative would like to share, but that was one of the reasons that was given for the delay in presenting, bringing it to P and Z, and the need to have the extension from City Council. Another item to note is this subdivision does include the extension of Nuevo Hueco tanks from North Loop to Nevares.
Okay, and then, because there's changes to the preliminary plat, and this is the final plat, and this is just a question that, wouldn't it start as a preliminary plat again?
I would say these are minor changes and would not necessitate going all the way back to a preliminary plat.
And how do we distinguish?
That would be just changing the basic nature of the whole subdivision, like all of a sudden, it's not 200, it's 10 commercial lots or industrial lots.
Okay.
That wouldn't happen because the zoning's not there. But the road configuration, except for that minor one, largely stays the same.
Okay. And then, this would be a question for Mr. Marwa.
Marwan?
Marwan, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Marwan. Just to kind of as a point of order, not just to make sure that I know what tools we have. We could decline this if we want, if we found reason for it, because it does not meet the R3 designation, because they are asking for the variance, right?
Yes.
Okay. In my opinion, I remember this being very contentious. I remember that out of the 217, for some reason, I'm thinking that 100 plus lots were under the 6,000. And being that this has taken them a long time, and it is, that they are coming back to us, and it does take a lot of planning and logistics, I think that if we table it, Planning and Zoning, it's my understanding we have a 30-day window between when they submit the request to when we have to vote on it. I'd be in favor of making a motion to tabling it, and this way it gives us the opportunity to look at, one, the changes, two, see how many lots are under the 6,000. And the reason that's so important is because statistically speaking, and I'm probably the person that's going to know least about this, but statistically speaking, the smaller the lots, the higher expenses for any municipality you're going to have, between police response, noise complaints, XYZ. So I think it's important that we take those 2 weeks to give the developer and the staff the ability to kind of give us these numbers. If they're giving us a second opportunity to look at it because of the time delay, I think another 2 weeks would be okay. So those are my questions.
And I think to add to that, just so we're aware of the timeline, Lauren, do we know what is the date that this application was submitted to P&Z?
We would probably consider the application complete when they submitted the payment. So I'd have to go back to look at the exact date. We would probably not be making the 30 days because of the additional requirement to present and, to place the item on the agenda twice for city council.
If that were to be the case, then we could do a special meeting to meet that timeline? If there
Yes.
was availability and
Mhm.
that, okay. I don't have any questions.
I need more info as well.
I'd like a with more information as well, but maybe with having the representative in person give a more detailed presentation. I'd like to know specifically how many, the number of lots fall under the threshold. And that's because we're being asked to vote on a variance. So specifically, I'd like to know. So I agree with tabling.
Do we know when the original presentation was? What date?
Yes. The preliminary was presented to Planning and Zoning in September of 2021, September 7th. And the final, no, I apologize, I don't have those dates. I'm looking at the next case. The commission voted for approval of the preliminary plat on October 5th of 2021.
October 5th, 2021.
Yeah, which is
Mhm.
Okay.
It's about 2.5 years.
And we've got a really great staff that puts all these videos, or these
Oh,
meetings on YouTube.
Definitely.
So it'd be good to kind of look back at that, just to kind of see what the train of thought was. But yeah, I'm ready to make a motion. Nobody else has any questions? I'll make a motion to table, and then if need be,
To schedule a special meeting.
yes, please.
I second.
I have a motion made by Enrique Cisneros to table this item to schedule on a special meeting, and second by David Estrada. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Item number 8, consider and take action on the approval of proposed final plat resubmission for Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2, located at Nuevo Hueco Tanks Boulevard, being all of Track 8, 9, 10A, and 11C, and a portion of Track of 10A1 and 11C1, Block 5, Socorro Grant, Socorro, Texas, and a variance for a maximum height and parking reduction. Ms. Lorraine?
Thank you. The item is a final plat submission and resubmission and variance request for the height, maximum height and parking reduction. This would be for Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2 subdivision on Socorro Logistics Lane. The owner is Hunt East Lake Industrial and Socorro Logistics Land LLC. The representative is Jorge Grajeda with CEA Group. Property is 60.74 acres in size, zoned ICMUD, and currently vacant. Request for approval is again for the final plat resubmission for Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2 and variance for height and building height and parking reduction. The final plat was approved by City Council on December 1st of 2022. They did have a change in the design and layout, switched from one building to two, and had requested a resubmission. In the resubmission that was recently approved, they left off the variances for the building height and parking, which is why it's being presented again today. This property is off of Nuevo Hueco Tanks Road and Socorro Logistics Lane. These are, this is the zoning map. It is zoned ICMUD, ICMUD to the north, east, and west, commercial to the south. These are photographs taken of the property from Socorro Logistics Lane, and the aerial showing the new, the currently constructed buildings at their very beginnings. Those also part of Socorro Logistics. Those three buildings were approved in Socorro Logistics 1. This would be final plat 2 in the area highlighted in yellow, vacant land to the north and east. This is the original master plan. Our building is in between those ponding areas, depicted here as 1, and in the next slide, the new configuration of the buildings and why they wanted to resubmit to create 2 lots instead of 1. The details for the building height are in the letters I shared. If anyone is missing those, Marion can share.
I've got an extra one.
So the maximum height is set in the ordinance as 45.
Sorry. I thought it was all 2.
45 feet. The proposed new building, Building 1. They are requesting a maximum height of 55 feet at the entrance building corners and 51 feet at the majority of the sidewalls, with 37 feet and 10 inches at the rear loading dock walls. Building 8, they're proposing also a maximum height of 55 feet at the enhanced building entrance corners and 51 feet at the majority of the sidewalls and 37 feet and 10 inches at the rear loading dock. And for the parking reduction, Building 1 is being proposed at 392,250 square feet. Estimated office space is 5% of the total footprint. And the parking requirements would require 35 minimum, 50 max stalls, 1 per 400 square feet, and 52 minimum, 75 maximum stalls per 7,200 square feet. So the parking requirement, and we've discussed this on several occasions, that the ordinance is a little out of date and not in step with what the current needs are for these types of buildings. So they are providing 179 stalls with 8 total accessible spaces as additional spaces at Building 1. Building 8 is 476,281 square feet. The office area is 5% of the total footprint at 23,814 square feet. And that is what they're using to account for the true parking requirement. So 164 stalls and 8 accessible. 200 parking spaces with 6 accessible spaces, if I'm reading that correctly. With that, staff can answer any questions. And again, the CEA representative Alan Herrera is on the call and can answer any questions, as well as the representative from TPA Group.
I've got some questions. So we're going from 1 building to 2, and if I remember correctly, this one was a little contentious, not because of the height, but more for the parking?
No, we didn't have the discussion about the parking.
No?
When they came back for the resubmission, all they showed was the 2 buildings in place of the 1, the replat splitting the 2.
Okay.
And so that was approved, correct?
We approved it here at the Planning and Zoning Commission. It went to City Council. And then just recently, CEA and TPA Group reached out to us to talk about the variances, and that was the opportunity to do it, so we're presenting it again.
So the lot split itself in that plat hasn't changed?
No.
The only thing we're being asked to consider is a variance on the parking space?
The height of the maximum height of the building and the parking reduction.
When it was approved, was it approved with any caveats?
No. And you're referring to the preliminary, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, not that I'm aware of.
thought of something. So I know that this is for logistics and warehousing, right?
Yes.
And not that manufacturing is what it used to be in the United States, but given, you know, the global atmosphere we're in, could that come back to Mexico? Could that come to the border region? Right?
Yes,
Hindsight's
definitely
20/20.
things to consider. One never knows who would have guessed that all of this would be coming back 10, 15 years ago, or 10, 25 years ago when the rush was to leave. And
How do we figure out what's happening in
Right,
10 years?
I don't
That's the
know.
thing,
I
right?
don't have a crystal ball.
That's the talent. So my question would be is, so I'm the one that probably knows the least and has the least experience when it comes to the parking and how many it takes for logistics and warehousing. But
are they painting themselves in a corner in the future when they try to change the use of the building and they don't meet the parking requirements?
well,
That's kind of, I guess, the question you're getting at?
well, I think is ownership always has, you know, I'm a business owner and I make decisions on my business, right? My capacity here is, as a voluntary oversight committee, how do I empower the city to give them the tools they need if that changes in the future? So my question would be, okay, if the planning and zoning department, in their knowledge and in their, you know, you guys know better than I do, recommends the approval, my question is, how comfortable do we feel in approving the variance so long as it stays, so long as the occupancy certificate, or how do we word that, so long as the business stays as a warehousing and
Well, that's tied to a
Logistic.
certificate of occupancy, which is separate from this case. So in the example I just, and the way I posed the question, if the use were to change and somebody else were to buy it and they want something else, they now have the burden of requiring that certificate of occupancy for that use and providing for the parking for that use, whatever that might be. Would that involve trying to buy additional land, making some sort of allowances for where would we add that additional parking? Are they limited? Are they aware of that? So those would be questions for them, and we would capture that in that process of issuing a new certificate of occupancy.
is there any tool that we would have today as, in approving the variance as per planning and zoning department recommendations, so long as it's, is there any tools that we have?
And again, this was an issue that came up with the other item, East Wind Industrial, and we talked about it then as well. The additional tool that we have is the ICMUD zoning designation. It's tied to a master plan. If something's going to change, we're going to revisit the master plan because now it's not complying with the master plan.
The only thing is that this is a variance. So, and I'm just going off of instinct, and so what I'm thinking is, and you and staff can correct me, including our legal representation. Can we approve it and approve the variance so long as it has the occupancy certificate for warehousing and
Manufacturing.
logistics?
But that doesn't take away what the future might change and the use might change. We wouldn't give them a certificate of occupancy if the use changed and necessitated more parking
But the occupancy certificate is handled,
by the Planning and Zoning Department.
correct. It doesn't come to
No.
the Civilian Voluntary Board.
No.
So I guess my more direct question is, how were we able to do it in the last one and not on this one?
We're following the same process with East Wind Industrial. We came to you for the variances,
Yeah.
for the maximum height and they worded it differently for the parking.
Yeah. But did we, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we approved it and gave them the variances, the height variances, the parking variances, so long as it stayed.
I asked the staff to print the motion, and what was approved was a minimum of 45 foot, because there was setbacks, as well as the maximum height. So to approve a minimum of 45-foot front setback variance, to approve for a maximum 55-foot height variance, to approve the parking lot variance as long as it complies with the approved development plan, which is one parking spot for every 2,000 square feet, and that's how we, that's how the motion was made and approved.
Okay.
So there's the tie back to the development plan being, this is an industrial warehousing or logistics center industrial use,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm, because it has been a little bit. Mr. Body, do you remember how we ended up approving that last variance? That was similar to this one?
Yeah, I would have to go with the motion and whatever the secretary wrote, but that sounded accurate to me, yeah.
Then I don't have any further questions.
David, no questions?
No?
Okay. So if this was for approval, we don't have to, this would just be approved for approval with staff recommendations, nothing else added?
Yes, and with the, if you want us to include all of the information on the height, like the maximum height 55 and the total number of parking spaces for Building 1 and Building 8, we can include that in the motion.
Do we have to include it?
It can be per
Because-
staff recommendation.
Just per
Mhm.
staff recommendations?
So, can I ask a question? So, okay, on the Building 1 sheet right here, can you clarify what they're requesting or what their minimum number of parking spaces that they're asking for? So, for example,
Mr. Herrera, would you? Or to
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. They're just asking for clarification on the number of parking spaces for Building 1 and Building 8.
Hi guys, good afternoon guys, Alan Herrera with City Group. I'm not following the question. What do you mean by a clarification
Well,
on the
okay, so
parking
building,
spaces?
the sheet that we're looking at says Building 1, it says total parking required, 87 minimum and 125 maximum. And it says total parking provided is 179. So that's above your maximum is how I'm reading this. And so you're asking for a variance for less parking stalls, correct? So, am I correct? And so my question is, how many parking stalls are you asking for? What's your minimum amount of parking stalls? If what's required is between 87 and 125, it states total parking provided 179. What is it that you're asking for?
Okay.
So I guess my confusion is that it says total parking provided is 179 stalls, so that's way above the minimum and the maximum, right? Way above the maximum. So I'm confused as to what your, like what's the proposed, I guess. If currently I'm thinking that total parking provided is 179 stalls, I guess I'm looking for a line item that says total parking proposed or total parking requested. That's the number that I'm looking for. And if you look at Building 8, it's the same situation. This one has 105 minimum, 105 151 max, and then total parking provided 164. So I need clarification on what those numbers mean, unless,
And I'll add a little bit to that, and I'm assuming these are 18-wheeler stalls, correct? Is that gonna be like parking lots for all these 18-wheelers, in regards to all those questions that they have? Does that mean they're all gonna be there at the same time, or are they idling? Is it gonna be more traffic? And I'm a little confused on that part too. Right?
Mr. Allen?
Yeah, actually, on this item, I'm not too familiar on what the issue is on the provided stalls, and I'm trying to find out the answer.
Hey, Alan, this is Adam Dewar with TPA Group. Mind if I jump in?
Yes,
Go for it,
please.
go for it, Adam.
So, thank you for your time tonight. I just want to address this. My architect had drafted this. Unfortunately, he's not on the phone. I think the total parking required calculation was like a simulation that he was running that maybe applied to a different zoning code. The total parking provided for building number 1 will be 179 stalls. That is what we are asking for approval for today.
So you are
And
providing
for
more than the
building number
required ones?
8, let me get to that sheet as well, will be 164 parking stalls. So those are the numbers that we would be comfortable referencing in the variance request. I don't think that we even need to include the confusing language that he referenced, making additional parking requirements that really don't tie to our development or the current ICMUD parking code. So I apologize for the confusion.
so you first mentioned the math that was used belonged to to different code. And so the math that's where it says total parking required, is that for example, 87 minimum and 125 max, is that not supposed to be here?
I think it should be
Let me-
removed.
Actually, let me jump in. Alan again with CEA. These are the typical industry standards. So we wanted to make a reference of what the actual industry standards are, and then we show what we're actually providing.
Okay, and so you're providing more than the industry standard. You're providing more than the maximum.
From the current standards, yes.
So could we, then the variance for the parking wouldn't be necessary, or would it?
That's what it sounds like. I mean, it sounds like the variance.
But they don't include what our zoning would require.
What-
But they did, our code requires, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Marwan, do you have the code in front of you for what
Yeah, I
the
can try.
requirement is per square foot?
Yeah, let me see if I can try to pull it up.
The parking requirement for ICMUD today would have us, half of the building would be parking. We would never have that many employees in these buildings. It's just an unrealistic calculation. So we'd rather allow the tenant to have more space in the building to operate and run an efficient facility. Typically, a typical calculation that I see is like, if you want to do it on a square footage basis, it'd be maybe somewhere to like 0.3 to 0.4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, I think we're clear on, right? what he's saying is that with the old calculations, like way overboard. And so it'd be like way too many parking spaces for that square footage.
But they have no intended use for them, or why is the variance there?
Yeah,
No,
under,
no, because the 179 is less, so go ahead.
yeah, under 46631 off-street parking requirements, and this applies to industrial uses, specific warehouse and distribution, one space per 500 square feet of net leasable area. So one space per 500 square feet.
And that's the whole area, whereas these industrial warehouses, a lot of that space is taken up by merchandise.
Yeah, he added it here. I think.
Yeah,
And I guess the point is if the city ordinance is X and we're asking for a variance of Y, that they can kind of take us along in that conversation and guide us to the answer, right?
so that was my fault, I apologize.
no,
I should have that as part of my backup.
But
What is ours, and I know that it's high.
No, but you're presenting a number of different items. We've got the applicant, we've got
Yeah,
everybody that's working on it, and that's kind of, and that's not a criticism. It just adds to the confusion. So if, and you all are going to know better than I would. If one parking spot for every 500 square feet is too much, how much are we asking for here?
they're asking for the 179 with that,
For 452,000 square feet?
I'm looking at building one, the building itself is 372,894 feet, and the actual office area is 19,626 square feet.
So, if my math is right, which it might not be, but, so if we did one parking spot for every 500 square foot, we would need 784 parking spots.
Right.
And so instead of having 784, they're proposing 179. Okay. Again, I don't think we have, or at least me, I don't have an issue with the parking spots. I just want to give the city any tools that they might be able to use in the future in the event that the use changes above the occupancy certificate. But yeah, I guess that's the hard part, where we are getting into the nitty gritty and the minutia of it, and yeah, we're not getting a lot of information to take us to the answer that they're wanting. But that's fine.
Anybody?
Well, I mean, I'm on the summary of requests, it says, it's asking us to vote on a variance for building height and then parking reduction. I'm still not clear, I guess, on the parking reduction, but I'm clear that they're requesting, for example, 179 stalls. So if that's,
So if we work out the math, or we can ask the representative if that is a certain number of stalls per square feet, is it per square feet of the proposed office area? Is that how you arrived at, because that we can include that wording in the motion? And just the max height of 55 feet for the building?
okay, yeah, I think I follow you. Well, okay, so if you can give us how you arrived at the 179 stalls, give us that math, and then we vote on that and add that to our motion.
So the parking spaces were not calculated, that we wouldn't use any calculation. We did it based on site planning and experience from developing industrial properties. We wanted to give both sides of the building access to auto parking for multiple tenants, optional accessibility to the buildings. We understand that these buildings, we just constructed 3 of them directly across the street in the same park, one for Honeywell, one for Maersk, and one for Werner Ladder. All those buildings are occupied and operational, and the tenants just, they're not using all of the parking spaces for the e-commerce and logistics facilities. We understand that if a different use were to come along in the future, there could be more parking requirements. At that time, you could always pave some of the truck courts to expand your parking options. But the way that I'm seeing this is that we could, even if a different tenant came from, started off as industrial and wanted to go to a different use outside of ICMED, they would still have to come before your commission for additional approvals. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So all that we are looking for today is to obtain approval for a very similar design that we did next door on the 3 buildings. For the increased height and the parking calculation, I think if we can write that off, I just want 179 stalls for building 1 and 164 stalls for building 8. And that's per the site plan that you have seen on the screen tonight.
So if we were to make a motion, again, I'm sorry, if we were to make a motion to approve, we would make a motion to approve with the variance in the height and with variance of having 179 stalls for building 1 and 164 for building 8.
Yes.
And I don't think anybody has any issue against the development, and we're happy that you're developing in Socorro and we want it. We could have used a little bit more help, kind of taking us to the answer that you're requesting. So I think for future references, if you could help us with that, that'd be great.
Yes, sir. We apologize. We kind of phoned this one in last minute. I'm remote. I would prefer to be there in person, and thank you for your consideration.
Well, and I'll tell you, because you've got, I'm an insurance agent, so I don't live in the construction world or so the more help I can get, it's because of my shortcomings in this field. But I appreciate it. I guess we're ready to make a motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve with, for the Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2 final plat resubmission and the variance for the building height of 55 feet, and for the parking reduction on building number 1 with 179 stalls and building number 8 with 164 stalls.
I second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to approve with the variance for a maximum of 55 feet of height and a parking variance for Building 1, 179 stalls, Building 8, 164 stalls, and second by David Estrada. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Item number 9, Planning and Zoning Commissioners Report.
I have something to report. So, the city of Socorro is going to be putting together a learners league for baseball. So, if you've seen it on the Facebook page, please like it and share it. We are looking for coaches. We are looking for volunteer coaches. We are also looking for corporate sponsors. We've been able to raise at least half of the funds. We're still about $2,500 short. Mr. Reta is part of the committee. Laura, who is also, she is the
Wellness coordinator?
wellness coordinator, thank you, can also be reached out. As always, yours truly is a chismoso in there, so if you have any questions, please let us know. But yeah, it's gonna be really great. I think it's so my little boy plays baseball, and we have to practice in Tornillo, we have to play in El Paso. So hopefully we can develop this for the city of Socorro. Families can have something to do, like for their kids to play sports here, practice here and play here. So yeah, please participate. Let us know if you can coach or get us a check. Thank you.
Different, I'm assuming they're different age groups, right?
Yes, sir. We're starting with it'll be boys and girls. It'll be, if I remember correctly, Mr. Reta has a better memory than I do. It's going to be 10U or 10U, and it's going to be part of the different schools. So the kids can go to play for their schools, and it's really great because it's going to be the feeder system or the farm. The farming league for the middle schools and the high school. Yeah.
Thank you.
Item number 10, Planning and Zoning Department report.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone, especially our sponsors, for helping us put together our Super Socorro Sunday event on Sunday. Thanks to Mr. Reta for taking the lead and coordinating all of the effort that the city placed behind putting together an awesome event for the community. There were representatives from all the departments, and Planning and Zoning was able to share the event with our consultants on the comprehensive plan. The consultants came out, they had activities for the public, they answered questions regarding the comp plan, and gathered a great deal of feedback before the wind kicked in and kind of ended the party early. But it will soon be available, all of the results from the results from the questionnaire should be up shortly on the website. If you go to the city's website, just scroll down about a quarter of the page down, you'll find a link to the City of Socorro's comp plan page. The questionnaire results will be there. The voting for the items that were discussed at the Socorro Sunday event will also be available for people to participate in. And from here till we get our draft, till after we get our draft, we'll still be taking comments from the public and encouraging everyone to share their thoughts on what the consultants have created based on all of the input they've received so far. Thank you again to everyone who's participated and been a part of putting the word out there and getting everybody involved. Just a couple of project updates. We are still on track to complete Rio Vista Bridge replacement in a few more months. Get all of the work done at the bridge, and then move across the street to realign the lights, so the signals, so that they all match up. Passmore shared use path, they're finishing up all of the minor items that are still left. They've almost done installing all of the lights, so that's a great project. It's a bit of a pause. Once we finish all of the outside work, we still will have to come back after irrigation season to complete the work at the Clint Lateral. And with that, I'll let Victor share some great news that he has been a big part of over the last 10 years.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, commissioners. Victor Reta, I am the Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Socorro. As Ms. Camilo mentioned, I do have an announcement, and we will be celebrating the National Historic Designation for the Rio Vista site on Saturday, May 11th. All of our commissioners and staff are more than welcome to attend. We will be having members from the federal government come down to see Rio Vista. There has been talks of AOC and some of the Castros brothers attending the event, as well as our Congresswoman Veronica Escobar and the Deputy of the Secretary of the Department of the Interior, Secretary Deb Halal. So you are all more than welcome to attend. I will be giving the save the date to Ms. Camilo and her staff, so that way she can facilitate it to all her commissioners. But we'd love to have you there Saturday, May 11th at 5 p.m. at Rio Vista.
Thank you. I have one more question. For the special meeting for that Valle Nuevo, will we be contacted for that?
Yes.
Then, okay.
If next Tuesday is fine, it would probably be best to just go ahead and schedule it for next Tuesday at the same time? Oh, sorry, and we would just need to change location. No, we're fine. I believe there's no conflict with us meeting here.
So are we setting that right now, or?
If you'd like to, we can, and that way, yes?
I'm
Get on
good.
track to do that. Yes?
I'm good with that.
So the
Follow up.
special meeting for March 12th, is that okay?
At 5:30.
At 5:30.
At 5:30, yes?
Here.
And the Monday before the Socorro Small Business Community meeting is meeting at the Chayo Apodaca, and Chief Rojas is presenting. And I did forget to mention, Mr. City Representative Alejandro Garcia has also been pivotal in the baseball league, and our city manager, Rodarte, Adriana Rodarte. So, shout out to them.
Perfect. Item number 11, consider and take action on the adjournment of this meeting. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to adjourn and second by Osvaldo Reza. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned at 6:37 p.m. Thank you.
And in case anyone was curious.
Goodbye.